Wanna talk? So let's talk. Here. Talk. You wanna talk? You gotta talk, you need to talk. News talk.
I talk, you talk to Solomon. I talk, you talk to Solomon. Yeah, let's talk to Solomon. Talk to Solomon.
You gotta talk.
Good evening and welcome, my friends. It's Talk to Solomon time. Our guest, the Honorable Ex-Ambassador Dr. Alan Keyes, one of the smartest men ever to bless our country and our planet. Dr. Keyes, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well, Stan. Thank you. Hi, Chief.
Hello, Dr. Keyes.
How are you tonight?
I am great. Glad to have you with us.
Alan, there's so much happening. It's hard to determine where to start. You missed the last half hour because during that half hour, the chief modeled the new male lingerie, not because he likes it, but because he figured once they saw him in it, no one would ever buy it. I think he had a point.
I'm sorry I missed that one.
The biggest story in America is not that there were military assets that could have saved some of our people in Benghazi, not that the election was stolen, not that the gun bill that failed actually had in it hidden as a hidden agenda the right for everyone's gun permit to be honored nationwide like a driver's license, but that a 6'10", 36-year-old semi-articulate individual is now two things. One, openly gay in the NBA, that rhymes, and secondly, has developed the verbosity of Shakespeare. I'm a bit suspicious, but let's just open the discussion with, why does anyone give a damn that this guy is a pervert?
Well, Stan, I guess I heard about this today in the context of something that I, in fact, was writing about. My column on Friday, when it appears on WorldNetDaily.com, is going to be about the move that was made by the Boy Scouts, which you've probably heard about and discussed.
Oh, admitting the homosexual kids, but
right.
no homosexual leaders.
Now, and I, in the article, discuss what I think is the strategic and tactical purpose of this on the part of those people who are trying to force this agenda on the Boy Scouts and who are trying also to use the whole promotion of the normalization of homosexuality to destroy the natural right claims of the natural family and deprive people throughout the country of their Ninth Amendment rights, which are clearly rights that have to do, among other things, with the rights and authority that's necessary to maintain the God-endowed natural family. Now, think about this. Here we are all caught up in other events that are taking place, particularly in the aftermath of the Boston bombing, in the face of things like the Gosnell trial, which they're trying desperately not to talk about. And in the midst of all these distractions, this issue where people thought, well, that's been stopped for the time being, the whole idea of promoting homosexuality in the Boy Scouts, turned out it wasn't stopped. It turned out that it's now being promoted by an even more insidious means. And I go into that in some detail, I will go into it in the column that I'll be publishing this week. Now, you then have, in the run-up to this, and we're going to see more of it, I think, because that is going to be decided by a vote of the more general leadership population within the Boy Scouts, not just a little handful of people in their top management. So it's going to be voted on, and I think that vote is scheduled to take place in the last week of May. In the interim, I think we're going to see a lot of things that are aimed at prejudicing the environment in which that decision is going to be taken, because quietly, I think that is in fact the most momentous decision that is being made in America right now. And it's going to have deep and possibly quite onerous and baneful effects on the future prospects for the maintenance of our society, of our family system, and ultimately, of course, of our liberty. And I think that taking this episode with the NBA player and putting it all over the face of Time magazine and all this, which I hear they're going to do, and promoting it in every possible way. That's by way of introducing what I think is going to be a barrage of this kind of positive promotion of homosexuality over the course of the next several weeks.
I think you're obviously correct, and I think they're assuming there will be no one that will dare object to it because it will be endorsed by Kobe Bryant, Michelle Obama, and a few white folks too. And you'll be such a, there's one black reporter who said, I'm a Christian, that's not acceptable to Christian faith, and they did everything but fire him. They finally didn't fire him, but I'm going to send him a support letter, certainly. But I think that they're assuming that America is like John Bonner. Larry Pratt was on our show, and he said zoologists have decided there's a new life form, exemplified by John Boehner, who is a life form that can stand erect without a backbone. And I think that they are assuming that most of America is now a part of that new species. I think they're going to be surprised. I may be surprised too. I think they're going to see some reaction, and I don't think they're going to like it. Now, we talked about this. A survey taken, a major survey among Muslim people, showed that the one thing that almost all Muslims agree on is that homosexuality is wrong. Next to that is killing unborn babies. So as America becomes more and more the center of the world for homosexuality and killing unborn babies, we are handing Muslim morons, Muslim extremists, Muslim lowlifes the rope with which to hang us. I'll go to the chief.
Well, that's exactly what the left has been accusing the conservatives for a long time, is creating scenarios where the Muslims will be mad at us and attack us. But this to me, it's a much bigger issue. What they've done here is they're promoting this a professional basketball player. He's in high esteem in the monetary world, in the sports world, in the notoriety world. But what I really see here is an example of the left's publicists are much better than the publicists on the right. Even though their message is wrong, they're much better at conveying a message than the right is. And we have got to get better at conveying our message in order to combat this, because this is where these news stories are won in the news. So this is out there. And
let me make a quick comment, because the response to that, Chief, would be the left owns the media.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
But a funny thing happened. The Koch brothers, well-known conservatives, are talking about buying the Los Angeles Times. They just had a big meeting of all the Los Angeles Times people, and half the people there said they would quit if the Koch brothers bought the paper.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's go. Let's do it. Buy it today.
All right.
I'll subscribe.
Dr. Keys.
Well, you need to carefully check, though, Stan, whether on this issue that change is going to make any difference. Because we do know that there are folks who identify themselves as conservatives who, when it comes to defending the rights of the natural family and maintaining the heart of America's moral understanding, the one that underpins our liberty, they're not at all interested in making the case for these kinds of issues. So we have to be careful not to think that just because folks call themselves conservatives, they're actually promoting the agenda that defends the moral roots of our way of life, because some of them do not. And I think that has to be carefully checked out. I also think, though, that this has to be looked at in a strategic way, as something that didn't just happen, it didn't just suddenly drop on us. It is part of the orchestration of public opinion. It was no accident, for instance, I think, that in the aftermath of the Boy Scouts coming forward with their insidious proposal to make moral cannon fodder of the youngsters in the Boy Scouts of America, and I'll be explaining what I mean by that in my column on Friday. I think in the wake of that decision, what happened? The Mormon Church, whose standard bearer, you recall, was Mitt Romney, when on Chick-fil-A Day and in other ways he made it clear that he actually promotes the agenda of so-called tolerance for and normalization for homosexuality, thinks that the Boy Scouts should drop their ban. It was widely publicized during the course of the election season. And lo and behold, right after the Boy Scouts let the shoe drop, and this, I think, insidious scheme to actually use the situation of the youngsters in the Boy Scouts in order to create situations of difficulty and tension where they can then promote the idea that to get rid of bigotry and discrimination in the Boy Scouts, you're going to have to allow adult Scout leaders. I think that the fact that the Mormon Church then announced, because they are, as I understand it, the largest single sponsor of Boy Scout units, in terms of Christian denominations. And they suddenly announced that this is okay with them. Do you think that was a coincidence? I don't. I see this as the development of a drumbeat, a drum roll, as it were, of preparation, trying to prejudice the environment and force the hand of folks who, in large majority within the scouting community, don't want to accept this promotion of what is obviously inconsistent with a faithful understanding of what it means to be morally straight. And so I don't think it's accidental. I think this is all being done of a piece, and I think the abuse of the media, which is part of this, is because those are the big guns they control. It's one of the reasons I tell real conservatives that I don't understand why people even bother with the so-called media. It's just propaganda now. And Americans ought to regard these so-called mainstream media outlets the way we regarded Pravda and other elements of the Soviet propaganda machine.
Well said. Now, I'm going to switch subjects a bit here because we have a lot of things I'd like to cover. And believe it or not, we're going to segue to global warming. This has been the coldest start to spring in forever. The Russians are saying we're going to see global cooling for the next 2 centuries or so. And yet, the left isn't missing a drumbeat in saying we need to spend more money, change more lives, give up more freedom in order to save the planet, even though there's nothing there. There's no there. Chief?
This reminds me of the doomsday cult that is waiting for the meteor to pass over, and they're going to take the poison before it happens, and then they're gone. It's almost like their fury is just revved up to the highest it can be. But the left constantly gives this argument that almost all scientists agree that there's global warming, when that's not true at all. Everyone knows that global warming, if global warming happens, the Earth cools and warms by itself all the time. It has forever. That's why we have summer and winter, because the Earth gets hot and it gets cold. But the fact that they want to tax people, take their money that can do nothing to affect the Earth's climate in any way, shape, or form is just a means of control. That's all it is. So I think they're crazy, but I think they're also vicious.
Well, I think it's all about money, frankly. Nothing else is even relevant. If you can take people's money, they have fewer options, you have more options. Dr. Keyes?
Well, Stan, in terms of the facility with which these folks shift their ground, I experienced it years ago when I was doing work for Ronald Reagan as United Nations Ambassador to the Economic and Social Council. It was part of the agenda in the UN bureaucracy and among some of the member states to promote what they called global warming. But when folks started to criticize that based on the fact that we weren't seeing global warming, they changed the terminology. And they started coming out with the UN papers that were about global climatological change. Now, you see, I decided then that these guys are really shrewd, because what they had realized was that everybody knows, right, that the weather changes. And since the weather changes, therefore you've got to give more power to government. Don't you think that's a very clever maneuver? It's sort of like death and taxes, they'll always be with us. Well, climate change will always be with us. And you'll have no trouble proving it because the weather always changes. Using that as your basis for the expansion of government control and power leaves you with an endless vista for the expansion of totalitarian control. And what was pursued in that bureaucratic sense, and these papers and things we produced at the UN, we now see being implemented in the way in which these folks are now shifting their ground. Facts are against them, science is against them, but that doesn't matter. They've been brainwashing kids to believe that the climate is a challenge that can force us to act on behalf of Mother Earth. It is, in fact, Stan, I think, with respect to these folks, they know that societies really can't survive without a moral purpose. And so, in order to promote the totalitarian socialism, they look away from the true moral purpose of our humanity, do everything in their power to destroy it, and they substitute for it this campaign based on the idea that we are the trustees and caretakers of nature, and that therefore we have to superintend those natural changes that are going to take place without us. It reminds me of a commercial. Have you seen this commercial? I forget who does it, but they have a whole bunch of people in the streets of a big city, and they're pulling on a rope. And using that rope, the sun rises. See? And this is what's going on. They're going to get us all to pull together on the rope so that the sun will come up. Now, nature is, of course, responsible for what's happening. But if they can convince everybody that only through the orchestration and control of government will the sun rise tomorrow, guess what? They've got a perfect excuse for imposing totalitarian control. And as you have said, and the chief has said, that's the real objective. We're not talking about the weather here. We're talking about storming the battlements of power by the socialist left, by the elitist few who are seeking to overthrow the self-government of, by, and for the people that has in fact confined them within the limits of respect for individual rights and decent human liberty.
You know, I've said before, and I'll say it again at this point because I think it's appropriate, there are two types of people in the world. There are those who believe in God and those who think they're God. Those who believe in God follow the rules God has given us. Those who believe they're God make up their own rules. I should add there's a third type of person. Idiots. They believe the people who think they're God. Chief?
Well, there's another class of people, too, and that's the illegal aliens. And when the 47% of us are pulling on the rope, they'll get a voucher or they don't have to.
It'll be them and the Congress critters and their staff.
Yes, they'll be exempt, of course.
They'll be exempt.
All right, let's take the next, what should be a major issue. You alluded to it, Alan, in that this trial, really the trial of the century, something that makes Hitler pale, that makes Stalin pale, that makes the Khmer Rouge pale, that makes Pol Pot pale, that makes Barack Obama look pale. The reality is that we have a person who has egregiously, aggressively, openly, and joyously murdered babies, murdered living babies. It's almost something that if you wrote it, nobody would buy your book because they wouldn't believe such a human being could even exist. Now, if you add the fact this is a black man killing overwhelmingly black babies, could you imagine if this was a white doctor who was somehow involved with the Klan that was killing these black babies, everything else being the same, the mothers voluntarily going there and all that? Could you imagine what they'd be saying? Now we have an undercover sting that shows in Washington, D.C., an abortion doctor within spitting distance of the nation's capital admitting that he does the same thing, that he kills breathing babies, that, and his nurse involved, that he puts them in toxic solutions, that he just ignores them and lets them die. The law of God and even America be damned. That is what the abortion industry is about. I believe, and I'm not speaking for Dr. Keyes or for the chief, I believe anyone who performs abortions should be tried for premeditated murder and should be given the death penalty using his own or her own instruments and the same processes they used to kill the babies. That's my opinion. I'm not suggesting anyone go out and do it. Dr. Keyes.
Well, Stan, one of the things that I am praying will come out of this horror is that folks will start to follow up on what a lot of people are hearing and paying attention to, perhaps for the first time. And that is the agenda behind these horrors. Particularly folks in the black community need to pay attention. I've noticed that there have been more articles written and mentions made of the truth about the origins of Planned Parenthood, particularly because Obama chose this moment to go and reiterate his role as the high priest of the culture of death, calling down the blessings of God on Planned Parenthood and their heinous support for hundreds of thousands of young nascent posterity being aborted. And I think that folks have been shocked, in fact, to understand that when folks like myself years ago were pointing to the deep fanatical extremism of Obama's commitment to that culture of murderous death, people were saying, oh, you're exaggerating, that's not true, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. And it's turning out now, as they are learning from the facts, just as I did years ago, that this is exactly true. It's exactly the case. Not only that, but they're being led to take a look at the facts behind the founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger's involvement with eugenics, her involvement with the agendas that sought to extinguish and exterminate so-called inferior people, the kind of ideas and thoughts that then were implemented in the terrible slaughters sponsored by Hitler and his Nazis, but the thinking and the mobilization that were the groundwork laid for those horrors were done by people like Margaret Sanger. And she explicitly talked about the fact that you'd have to get black folks, black pastors and intellectuals and professionals and doctors like this so-called Dr. Gosnell, who would then be willing to carry out the agenda that was aimed at eliminating these inferior peoples from the face of the earth. Folks are starting to examine this record. And a lot of black folks are waking up and realizing that there is a terrible tragedy that's playing out in the person of Barack Obama and in the terrible situation of the black community, which has lifted up, and some have even come close to worshiping instead of God, a personality that is implementing the agenda of death and murder against the posterity of all people, but with a particular and honest burden on the posterity of black folks in America. So having lauded this man like he represented some big breakthrough for black America, they discover the truth, that in point of fact, he represents the open maw of a charnel house into which the future hopes of the black American community are to be fed. And he is egging on those who are sponsoring and paying for and spreading and promoting this targeted slaughter. And as I see it, this is, as is said in the Bible, one of those times when God can take evil and he can turn it in such a way that it may work for good, because for people to have a truer sense of what is actually involved in Planned Parenthood and Obama and the sponsorship of this culture of murderous death, I think that is, in fact, something that could help to turn hearts away from that culture and back toward the respect for the unalienable right to life of all human beings as they come from the hand of God, which is the first principle that was stated in the American Declaration as the founding principle of this nation's life.
We're going to take a break and come back with more with Dr. Alan Keyes, Chief Steve Davis, and me here on Talk to Solomon. Let me ask you a question. Do you like being sick? I have in my hand an incredible product. It's called TR10 Supercolloidal Silver. TR10 stands for a trace to the negative 10th power. The particles in this silver product are 6 to 8 angstroms, 6 to 8 10 billionths of a meter. Now listen to me. Silver has been the magic bullet for all of human existence. The Egyptians used silver instruments. We use silverware. They put silver in your teeth because nothing can grow on silver. Silver will kill anything but liberalism. I'm working on that. This product, you go to cpnlive.com, buy 1 quart of this product. It will last you for a very long time. Anytime you feel like you've been exposed to something bad, take some of this product, spray it in your mouth, or take a little bit and gargle it, swallow it. It will kill any pathogen. The average antibiotic kills 10 to 20 different pathogens. This product will kill 700 plus. Do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, do your doctor a favor. He's tired of seeing you. Get Supercolloidal Silver. Go to cpnlive.com, order the product. It's $29.95 plus shipping. I think it's $39.95 delivered any place in America right to your door. It's worth 10 times that. Check it out. If you're not 100% happy, just return it and we'll give you your money back. I like to eat. Do you like to eat? We all do. And usually we run to the grocery store, we run to the convenience store, or we have something in the fridge. But power's been out in parts of this country in the last few weeks. We don't know what's going to come down the pike economically. Smart people are putting in food. Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves is a line of foods that you can put away that will last for a very long time. You know, they say eat what you store and store what you eat. This is great tasting stuff, healthy for you, a full line. You go to our website, cpnlive.com, and click on the button for Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves and see all the different things we have. This is good tasting food. It's reasonably priced. It will last. And it's worth its weight in gold if a problem arises. I know you don't think there's going to be anything that goes wrong. Actually, you do. This is smart. This is smart insurance. This is smart preparation. This is smart thinking. You have kids, you have a spouse, you have parents, you have dependents, you have an appetite. All those things can be addressed by a frugal but smart investment in Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves. Try them out. You will be tickled to death with the taste of them. You know what? In many cases, people start to eat this and they think, heck, this tastes better and costs less than what you're going to the grocery store to buy. cpnlive.com, check it out. Do you like being healthy? I do. In fact, this product, which I've been taking for years now, is absolutely the answer. Now, you may not believe it, but I'm actually 21, plus tax, of course. This product has 146 different healthful nutrients in it, and it's liquid, so it's bioavailable. It tastes great, and it's sugar-free. 1 ounce of Sonic Life each day will help you to maintain and enhance your health. It's the kind of a gift, well, that you'll thank your mom for, your husband for, your wife for, your kids for. Whoever you give it to, they're going to say thank you, and you are going to enjoy the benefits of having all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the nutrients your body needs in one very reasonably priced product. Just go to cpnlive.com and everything's right there. You'll be able to read all the ingredients. The price is right there, a flat price delivered to your door anywhere in the United States of America. Sonic Life is a gift, a great gift. Give it to yourself. I do. Hey, my name is Stan Solomon, and you know if I have something to say, I'll say it. And I'll only tell you the truth because I'm a Republican, not a Democrat. Democrats always lie. Republicans only lie half the time. I don't lie at all. This is the Fuel Mule. It's an extraordinary product that was developed by a friend of mine, an engineer, and it increases the fuel mileage on your vehicle. If you have a combustion engine, this will increase your mileage by 10 to 20%. It bolts around your fuel line. You can install it yourself or have your mechanic do it. It is an extraordinary item, and it flat works. I've been using it for more than 10 years. It's increased my mileage on every vehicle I put it on, and by the way, it will last forever. You can get rid of your vehicle, just take it off and put it on the next one. Go to cpnlive.com. You'll have more information there. You can order it right there. We absolutely guarantee you'll be satisfied. The Fuel Mule. It's a way to kick down your cost of fuel and kick up your mileage. Don't you love the name? I thought of it. The Fuel Mule.